Okay, so before we drain all the fluids and oil out of the Triumph, I thought it would be a good idea to go through the starting procedure just to see how it's done in case it isn't done for a while, and just to make it easier when you do. So the first thing to do is the ignition key is here on the left side of the top of the forks. All we're going to do right now is check to make sure there's some voltage. The battery's not dead, so we'll turn the key on, turn it backwards, and you can see up on the top of the headlight shell, I'll turn it off and on, that the voltage light, the generator light, goes on and off. That's a pretty good indication you've got voltage. Another thing you can do is just turn the headlamp on and see if the headlamp illuminates. It does. So you've got voltage. There's no battery voltage, obviously the bike's not going to start. So you've got voltage. The second thing to do, you can leave the key on at this point. Well, as a matter of fact, I think we'll turn it off right now. Okay, is turn the fuel taps on. There's one on both sides. Now traditionally, here, this is the left side of the bike as you're sitting on it. You would just turn the left side tap on. Turn it on so that the blade parallels the hose. But for our purposes today, I'm also going to turn the reserve tap on the other side, because there's so little fuel in it now that I think we'll have to get the reserve side going. So normally you just do the left side, but because we've got such a tiny amount of fuel, we're going to turn the reserve on as well. So once you've got the fuel on either side, you got to be sure there's fuel going to the carburetors, and flood the carburetors, or tickle them as it's called in the trade. This will help start the bike. So this little silver button here, there's one on each side of each carburetor. All you do is depress that button. Pumping it doesn't make any difference. You just hold it down, and eventually, if there is fuel in the tank, a little fuel will come dribbling out of the carburetor. I'm not seeing any on this side yet, but again, there's very little fuel in the bike. We'll go to the other side and do the same thing. Alright, there we've got a little fuel dripping out now. So that's a good indication that there's fuel. There we go. There's fuel in the tank. And then we'll come back over here to the driver's side, left side, and see if we can get a drip out of this side or so. It's just an indication that there's fuel in both bowls. You really don't need both bowls to have fuel in them to get it started, but it makes it a little simpler. Alright, so this side is not going to drip, but again, it requires gravity and fuel. So that's all you need to do to get started with that. Then back up again on top. This is the choke lever on the right side of the handlebar. You really don't need this very often. In its setting parallel with the handlebar, that means the choke is off. Pulled down in this direction against the spring tension actually chokes the carburetors. There's a little slide valve in there that does that. Normally just tickling them, flooding them does it, but we'll use the choke for our purposes today. Now I'm going to go around to the right side of the bike. The ignition is still off, so the bike's not going to start, but it's helpful to kick it a couple times to get a little fuel in it. That makes it start a little simpler. So I'm going to move to the other side of the bike. Okay, so we're on the right side of the bike. We know that the bike is in neutral because I just rolled it up onto the stand here, so obviously the bike's got to be in neutral for this to work. And I'm going to kick, our leverage isn't real good, but I'm just going to kick the bike through a couple of times to get a little fuel in there. Of course, it isn't going to start because we haven't got the ignition on. I'm going to turn the ignition on now. Back out here. Now, this motorcycle hasn't started in 6 months. 2 kicks, no problem. I just turned the choke to the off position. And it settles down into a nice idle. Hasn't been running 9 months or so, and it started in 2 kicks, so there's no problem there. Evidence that it does run. No smoke. Sounds real good, and it's ready to go. To stop it, there's a couple of ways to stop it. There's actually a stop button on one of the handlebars. I believe it's this one. No, that flashes the light. That honks the horn. On the left side, that's the kill switch. It's been so long since I did it, I forgot. So the top left is the kill switch. You can also just turn the ignition key off, which does the same thing. Now, what I would normally do, if I was going to not ride the bike for a little while, it's good to get the gas out of the carburetor. So all you would do is, while the bike is running, just shut the fuel taps off, let it idle, or run at a fast idle for a while, and pretty soon it will run all the gas out of the carburetors and the engine will die. That way you're not leaving gas sitting in the carburetors if it's going to be several weeks or a month before you ride it again. So I think that's going to take care of it. We're now going to drain the gas out of it and drain the oil out of it so the bike can be put up and preserved in a good state until you're ready to ride it. Good luck with the bike.